Hey there, in this video I'll show you how to farm Stonetail Fodder and fruits for Horse Awakening and alchemy. I often see people asking how to go about farming these materials and how much they can expect to get out of it. I can answer the second part right away. The average farmer will get about 15 Stonetail Fodder and 100 fruits a day from farming. We'll look into this in more detail later in the video. But first, let me show you how to farm for these materials. Before you start farming, I recommend you get two things. First, you want a dedicated farming alt. Having a farming alt means you can hop on that character every time your farms are ready to harvest and not waste any time traveling. Also, you want that character to have Artisan 1 farming. At this level, you'll unlock magical seeds, which are a huge game changer because they massively cut down the time you have to spend dealing with your crops. We're talking hours of active time saved every week. Of course, you can do farming without magical seeds, but my honest opinion is that it's not worth the time spent. You can easily get Artisan 1 farming in a day, and I got a video showing you how to do that, which I'll link in the description. And then you want to get 10 strong fences from our boy Flaviano in Heya. Strong fences cost 10 CP, so at 10 fences you'll need to invest 100 CP. I know 100 CP is a big chunk, especially given that you could use the CP on other things like worker nodes. But I can assure you that investing it into farming is worth it as long as you can tend to your farms at least 2 to 3 times a day. If you don't have 100 spare CP, you have two options: either rip up some of your low income nodes or get more CP. The best way of getting CP is cooking, and for cooking you just want to do our old friends, vinegar and pickled vegetables, but there's also a ton of other cheap recipes that work just as well. Now let's get into the actual farming. When it comes to farming, you need to know 3 things: what to farm, where to farm, and how to farm. Let's start by looking at what to farm. For this, let's head to my farming sheet. So as you can see here, there's a ton of crops you could farm, but some are better than others if you're going for fruits and fodder, so I pre-selected a few good ones. What makes them good is that they don't take long to grow. You can see here they're all sub 3 hours. But there is one big difference between them: the fruit they give. You see, different crops produce different fruits. For example, dry main grass gives fruit of enchantment, while purple mushrooms give fruit of nature, and so on. So if you're farming for a specific fruit, you want to make sure to pick the right seed. If you're farming for Stonetail Fodder, the fruit is not that important, but it doesn't hurt to pick a useful fruit as well. Now that you have some idea of which crop to farm, let's figure out where to farm it. If you open the map, you can see the temperature information. You'll want to farm where the temperature is just right for your crops. For example, I've set up some purple mushrooms at Heya farm, which is west of Heya. If we look at the crop information, you can see that the temperature for purple mushrooms is perfect at this spot. This is indicated by the slider, which is inside the thick red part of the temperature bar. It's important that you plant in optimal temperature conditions if you want to get the lowest possible growth time. Of course, Heya farm isn't the only spot where you can farm purple mushrooms. If we look at the farming sheet again and there go to the locations tab, you can see that they also grow well in Medaya and Valencia. But if you look at this table, you can also see that Heya is fine for like 90% of crops, so I recommend to farm in Heya unless you have a specific reason for going to another location. By the way, if you're looking for farming spots, you can just go to the right here and find spots for every region. Now that we know what to farm and where to farm it, let's look at how to farm. First, you want to take your fences and place them. Placing 10 fences can be a bit tricky, so here's a setup for 10 strong fences at Heya farm that you can copy. Next, we need to plant our seeds. There's a cute little key combo for this. You can do 1 into LMB into space. And this will save you a bunch of clicking. And then we want to fertilize the crops. This will get the growth time down by 20%. If you see growth times online, keep in mind that they're always given at the optimal temperature and with fertilizer applied. To apply the fertilizer, you want to stand between fences, and this way you can actually hit multiple fences at once. Also, fun fact, the fertilizer applies to the fence, not to the individual crops, so you don't have to line them up. Also, you don't need to worry about watering your farms or putting scarecrows. Unless you're farming in very specific locations, water is never gonna be an issue. And finally, you want to assign workers to your farms. You can do that in the farming menu in the top left. once assigned, the workers will tend to your crops and make sure your crops don't get any issues, because if they do, they'll have reduced growth time, which is the opposite of what we want. You can use workers from any town, so either use idle workers or buy cheap lodging in one of the major towns. Your workers will lose stamina when working on your farms and stop if they run out, so you want to use high stamina workers. But here's a tip: if you're using magical seeds, it doesn't even matter which workers you use. Like, I'm using goblins which have terrible stamina and they still never run out. And here's another tip for you: Heya Island actually has a free worker slot. What it means is you can just make a trip to Heya, hire a worker at the worker manager, and you'll get one free worker without paying for lodging. It doesn't even have to be a good worker, I just have a green human here. Also, what's hilarious is that if you assign a worker to your farm, he will literally walk across water to tend to your farm. If you knew about the Heya worker lodging, you can give yourself a pat on the back. And if not, then you just found a way to save 1 CP. Alright, if you have all that sorted out, you're good to go and can just wait for the crops to reach 100%. Crops can grow all the way to 200%, and I sometimes see people asking if they get anything by letting crops grow past 100%, and the answer is no. As soon as the crops reach 100%, you can breed them. You can actually breed or harvest the crops, but all we're gonna do here is breeding them. This gives fruits, blush leaves that you can exchange for Stonetail Fodder, and extra seeds that you can just vendor. Also, if you're confused about what this blush leaf is, basically they consolidated all the old farming byproducts into one. You can still turn them into Stonetail Fodder, but you can also now, for example, exchange them for CP. It's a nice quality of life change. Also, occasionally you get one of these things from breeding, the mysterious seed. To get stuff out of them, you first have to turn them into plantable seeds with one of these 2 recipes. Then you can just plant them like any other crop. If they're fully grown, you can either harvest or breed them. Harvesting gives crops and breeding gives fruits, but as you may have noticed, breeding doesn't give more seeds, so you can't farm them sustainably, unlike magical seeds. They're more like a goodie bag of items. The amount of fruits they give was actually buffed quite a bit, so they're kinda good for getting fruits. To tie this whole thing up, let's see how much stuff you can get out of farming using this method. If you do 1 rotation of breeding 10 strong fences, you will get on average byproducts for 5 Stonetail Fodder, 15 fruits, and 11 extra seeds that you can just vendor. But on top of that, you also have a chance to get a mysterious seed, and these things turn into a ton of fruits. If you farm, let's say, 3 times a day, you can get about 15 Stonetail Fodder and 100 fruits from the direct drops and mysterious seeds combined. In any case, I hope you found this guide helpful, and I'll see you in a future video. Take care.